Welcome to Cultural Fluency Makers. I'm your host, David Wellish. Each week, we welcome leaders to share how they stay ahead of the ever-changing consumer landscape. With today's cultural transformation, top brands need to understand diverse consumer segments from Gen Z, Hispanic, and LGBTQ+, to gamers, wine enthusiasts, and basketball fanatics in Iowa. Their marketing strategies require them to keep the pulse on their consumers, but also their brand in the category to continue to grow revenue for the long term. Cultural Fluency Makers is sponsored by Collage Group, the only cultural intelligence engine that provides brand and consumer insights on the why that drives consumer behavior and purchase decisions. Let's get started. So with me today is a powerhouse in global marketing, an executive who has spent his career driving first-to-market innovations and delivering profitable growth for some of the world's most iconic brands, from Ford Motor Company to McDonald's. He has been at the forefront of product launches, digital transformation, brand strategy, and large-scale turnarounds that have shaped and reshaped industries and consumer experiences. He has spearheaded billion-dollar successes, introducing groundbreaking platforms like Uber Eats, Mac Deliveries, scaling digital and mobile strategies across thousands of restaurants worldwide, and even trademarking vehicle innovations that contributed to tens of billions in revenue for Ford. Alongside these achievements, he is also a proven people leader, motivating teams, inspiring franchises, and guiding organizations with agility and vision. Today, he serves as the Chief Marketing and Experience Officer at Cava, where he leads the communications, creative, digital, and marketing organizations for the fast-growing 370 plus unit restaurant group. Andy Rebhun, welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much for the very kind introduction. I really appreciate it.
All right, let's do this and let's dive deep. So, Andy, you've had such a great trajectory and have overseen established brands. You're now in a hyper growth environment. Um, in the landscape in this country has changed and continues to change. Consumers are more fragmented than ever. You've got channel fragmentation, you got polarization, you got diverse America driving so much growth in many categories, including yours. What what do you see as the importance and the role of cultural insights or intelligence to win hearts and minds of consumers today?
Yeah, culture is a huge part of the way that you look at a brand and you look at the vision. And the thing about Cava is we're very much focused to adapting to cultural shifts by, blending our bold Mediterranean flavors with playful, culturally relevant experiences. And we've had a number of things throughout the year, from collectible plushies to our spice snacks. We're really showing that food can be more than nourishment. It's joy, identity, and connection. And so, we always try to be at the forefront of culture, and we always try to figure out what our role is in that conversation.
So, culture's at the center. Uh, it is important to be in the conversation. Is it hard? Is it easy?
It's interesting because I would say that you want to make sure that you stay true to the brand. And we have an incredible vision for the brand that four of our co-founders have established. And it's really about building on that foundation and making it appear in the day-to-day lives of people across the United States. And we want customers who experience the brand in New York City to feel the same as people who experience the brand in Birmingham, Alabama, or Los Angeles, California. And it's one of the really special and unique things about Cava and Mediterranean cuisine is it's meant to be shared with community, and the brand has been built with purpose. And we really try to be intentional about when we show up in culture and what makes sense for the brand. We're not going to be a part of every single conversation. We want to be parts of conversation that make sense to our brand essence. And makes sense to the way that people have grown to know us in the world.
And so, uh, again, it's important to be in culture. It begins with understanding the parameters, and it begins with the brand. To your point, but also culture and the conversations are moving so fast. Right? Like one thing is to say, hey, we want to be in culture, we want to be in the conversation. New York, and how do you how do you keep up? Are there specific tools? Are there platforms? What do you see? How do you get informed?
I can't give you all the secret sauce, man. No, I'm just kidding. But, I think there's a blend of, really trying to understand what people are talking about, what some of the challenges are, what's cool, what's unique, what's interesting. And I think, a really good recent example that I could provide to you is, we had in August, we rolled out a Hot Harissa meal and plushies. And this was just an example of the brand meeting culture with flavor and play. And essentially, we saw a trend starting to emerge in the February, March time period where people were really enjoying the like unboxing, the squishmallows, labubus, and we saw this as something that was really starting to take shape, and we saw a lot of people filming these videos, and we really felt like there was an opportunity for us to be a part of that conversation. And so we more or less commercialized our beloved character that we launched for National Pita Day, Peter Chip, and we brought a fun plushie character to life in the 4 different flavors of our pita chips. So we had Peter Chip, we had Jimmy Harissa, we had Garlic Gus, and we had Sweet Sammy. And so again, it was a really neat way for our brand to show up in a part of culture that was very popular and very relevant with our iconic pita chips and the 4 flavors that we've released so far.
I love those. That's a great example. And just taking that example, so when you said we saw that this was a trend that was sort of beginning to become, or it was a trend. Is that sort of casually monitoring where your people be like people go, hey, it seems like this is something that's bubbling up, or is it scientific in different ways?
Yeah, look, I think it's a art and a science, right? There's definitely a degree of trend monitoring that our team does. We see, what's happening in culture in terms of fashion, in terms of spending. We have a lot of people who are very passionate about, subscribing to a bunch of different Substack newsletters. So there's a number of different things that I would say are part of that, trying to understand what's happening in culture. But it's really just making sure that you continually monitor it, you're on the pulse of it, and, it's just as easy to it's just as hard, I would say, to say no, than it is to say yes. And so having that restraint, because you can't do everything and you can't be everywhere always. And so, it's being about really intentional and what makes the most sense for the brand.
That's great. Clearly, Cava in this sort of hyper growth environment is different than a McDonald's or different than a Ford. By the way, both of which we worked with as well. And I think in both cases, whether it's because of their maturity models, they segment the world. Whether it's personas, segments, demographics, whatever it may be, and they identify growth segments. You're in a bit of a different world because you're still trying to go after the mass, I guess. How do you think of that given where you are in your own growth curve?
Yeah, look, I think, it's really about educating people on Cava's mission, bringing heart, health, and humanity to food. And our founders designed Cava to share what they experienced growing up. Everyone welcome at a table, Mediterranean warmth and hospitality. And we have a really unique value proposition out there. We have 38 ingredients and over 17 billion combinations. And it's just as important for us in this stage of growth to educate people that Cava should be associated with Mediterranean cuisine as it is as a category defining brand, to help customers understand what ingredients like tzatziki and harissa are. I think you can look at a ingredient like hummus, and hummus has become a little bit more mainstream, and We have an incredible hummus product. You can get it in the grocery store and Whole Foods. We have a CPG business. And so we have very much a responsibility as a category leader to not only associate Cava as a Mediterranean restaurant brand, but also to help the general consumer landscape in the United States understand what Mediterranean ingredients and flavors taste like. And so that's also really a unique challenge for us. I'd say the other piece is, and you talk about two very large brands that I had the opportunity to be a part of, is Cava now has over 400 restaurants in 28 states, including DC. And, we opened up our first location in Michigan, Indiana, Pittsburgh, and South Florida this year. And so, you mentioned this a little bit earlier. How do you make sure that the cuisine is relevant in all those different markets? And there's different learning curves depending on where you're opening up in the country, because there's larger cities where you have a lot of people who are transplants, but then you have people in other parts of the country who have lived there their whole life and might not be aware of a Cava. So it's a fun challenge to tackle, and it's something that my team enjoys doing every single day.
Well, I gotta tell you, I am the beneficiary of your products. I am the beneficiary of being in the DC area, so I was an early client, which has been great. When you talk about consumers, and given and because we work so much in the QSR space, and I know that you may or may not put yourselves in that exact space, but we work with many of them, and for them, diverse consumers have become a growth area. Like they're like doubling down, and there's an interesting intersection about, hey, do those consumers, how do they relate to the Mediterranean cuisine? Is that an area that you think is interesting from a growth perspective? Not there yet, given the space. How do you think about it?
Look, I think when we talk about diverse consumer subsets, today's guests want food that's flavorful, energizing, and obviously meets the cultural diversity of the United States. And we really feel like our Mediterranean menu delivers that adventurous taste rooted in quality ingredients and obviously staying accessible and convenient for our guests. And primarily a lot of the generational driver of our cuisine is Gen Z and Gen Alpha, who they very much prefer bold flavors, healthy living, and values-driven brands. But, you know, half of Gen Z identify as ethnically diverse. So you think about Cava's authentic and adventurous flavors, and it resonates deeply with those guests. And a lot of guests don't want bland or predictable. They really want meals that align with their identity, connection, and culture. And so we feel like as a brand, as Cava, we've really allowed them to express themselves through this bold, nourishing food experience.
You guys are, I think, in such the right space. And today, authentic and ethnic, and it's where you want to be. It's where and you're totally right from a generational perspective. It's what folks are looking for. Let's shift a little and talk about cultural relevance. So I have the benefit and pleasure and honor to facilitate many roundtables, to uh, talk to many CMOs and heads of insights. And anytime I talk about cultural relevance, heads nod and they go, gosh, you gotta be culturally relevant if you're gonna win consumers' hearts and minds. I guess the question is for you, what is cultural relevance? At Collage, we actually, our soundbite is cultural fluency, but it means one and the same. What is cultural relevance, and how does a brand become it? How do you become it?
Yeah, I mean, to me, cultural relevance is being able to identify the needs and wants of your consumer subset and having a seat at the table or being a part of that conversation. And I think one of the things that's, very fascinating about the way that the consumer behaves is they very much like to have a more personal relationship with brands. And I think one of the beautiful things about where we're at as Cava is, we've developed and we've relaunched a loyalty program a couple times since I've been here. And our loyalty program is really designed to be culturally relevant. So as we scale, we believe that loyalty program is a primary mechanism to build a personal relationship with the guest, We have 3 different status tiers, so depending on how frequently guests engage with us, there's a sea, sand, and sun status that a member can have. And then I'd also say, through social media has kind of been one of our biggest unlocks as a brand. And as we've grown, our social content has grown with it. And so our team turns consideration into trial and rapidly converts followers into our fans. And so, the volume of people who rave and post and evangelize about our brand organically has just blossomed immensely. And I think a lot of that has to do with just how intentional we are with how we inject our brand into culture and, the types of things that we talk about on our handles.
Not easy to do.
Not easy to do.
So congrats on all that. Not easy to do. You have led marketing for some of the world's most iconic brands, McDonald's, Ford, as we talked about. When you think about building marketing strategies at that scale, what core insights do you believe always hold true, regardless of the industry?
Listening to your guests are extremely important. I think that having a pulse on understanding of what works, what doesn't work, what might work, and just having a regular North Star vision for what you want the customer to experience and what you want your team members to experience as a brand too. Because I think every decision that the marketers make, regardless of what industry they're in, there's always going to be some level of implication, whether it be that experience that the team member is providing, whether it be the financial implications, whether it be, what might be required from an ingredient or supply standpoint. So there's a number of pieces to the puzzle that I think you always have to consider as a brand. And it starts with the consumer and then also the team member.
So consumer always,
As
always.
the
I
nucleus,
mean,
yes.
always, right? Like that's the oxygen. That's growth. What is the difference between working and succeeding at such well-known brands versus at a place like Cava that is experiencing, such hyper growth, but you also don't have the established base that you've had in other roles?
Look, I think with McDonald's and Ford, incredible global brands that when you say the name, it's people know it right off the bat. And we've still certainly done a great job at Cava of building our awareness, and we're continuing to invest more in media. But I think one of the best parts about Cava that's very different from Ford and McDonald's is I get to work with 2 of the most talented founders in the restaurant industry on a regular basis, and that's Brett and Ted. And I think the way that they understand the space and want to create an experience that is going to forever change the world and the restaurant landscape is super cool. They're both very, very humble individuals, and I would say that's probably one of the things that is the differentiator, and that's going to continue to set Cava apart, is having 2 incredibly passionate founders involved in the brand and really trying to establish Mediterranean at the forefront of the global consumer. I mean, it's most popular diet in the world for the last 9 years. And so, obviously the United States, there's a ton of untapped potential here. And I think that we're set out to do that.
As you know, Andy, I've known Brett for a long time, and it has been so impressive to watch him in the early stages and how meticulous he was. Literally, very early on, and operationally excellent is what comes to my mind. I mean, I remember how, again, this is very early, but he was managing the business and had all the metrics from his phone. It was really impressive, and that was early in a you know industry that generally you don't think about as being sort of tech forward in that way.
I joke that Brett can probably moonlight as a realtor because he knows cross streets, he knows same restaurant sales for all different trade areas in the country. He's like so impressive, and it's really neat to have a founder who's also your boss and a CEO who really knows the ins and outs of the business so well. It's really cool. It's very special. I've worked for a number of CEOs in my career, and he is just really truly unique and special in that way.
Yeah. Can we talk about AI? How could we not?
Yeah, let's do it.
What is your take? It is it is impacting every industry, almost every function so rapidly. How is it impacting your marketing world, your insights world, and how do you see it evolving?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, there's still a lot unknown. And I think the way that the technology is rapidly advancing and scaling is unlike any type of technological advancement I feel like I've seen in my lifetime. And, one of the things that we say at Cava just about let me separate AI for a second, but just technology is we truly feel like technology will enhance, not replace the human experience and the human interaction. And so that's really the way that at Cava we're really looking at AI is are there processes or things that we can streamline from a team member and or guest experience standpoint? Are there things that we can look at with complex data sets that would normally take a lot of time milling over in Excel? So, we're really trying to figure out what types of team member productivity tools can help enhance just the overall experience or help streamline it. And, I think it's here to stay. And it's impressive to see the types of advancements that you can have. I mean, photos, videos, etc., are just so advanced in capability, and they're just producing these things in a matter of seconds. So, I mean, I'm in awe at times, but I would say that, you have to use it with restraint.
And it seems like, it's interesting. As an entrepreneur myself, I always look at the opportunities. It seems like ultimately the in-person and the human side, and you guys play a little bit of the counter to that, right? Like counter, like which is, hey, AI can make you more efficient. It can, it can in some cases make you more effective, but ultimately the human experience must be at the core of humanity.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think, when you look at just Cava and the new restaurants we've built, we're committed to having our guests' best interests at the center of everything that we do. And, because we approach our guests with Mediterranean warmth and hospitality, that human element is critical. And like I said, we want technology to enhance the guest experience and meet them with where they are in terms of the way that they want to interact with us. And so we've built some incredible new restaurants, which we call Project Soul, and the design is just inspiring. And you really want to spend like obviously go to Cava a number of times for lunch or dinner, and sometimes you have to pull me out of there because it's just so welcoming and it's so hospitable. And we have that type of interaction and omni-channel experience for every type of guest that interacts with the brand. So whether it be dining in restaurant or delivering via our digital app or one of our third-party partners, we've created a very pleasant omni-channel experience, and we're very proud of it.
And I think that's gonna become, I think, more and more important over time.
Definitely.
That's wonderful. So we have learned from you, and we much appreciated a few minutes learning about you. So what inspires you? What motivates you every day?
I would say the team and the brand. The team, I share this phrase that I bring the beat, bring the weather, and knowing that, there's a number of different tasks we have to accomplish as a brand every single day. I realize that I have the ability to impact all those on my team, customers, et cetera. And so I'm inspired by the great work that the collective team does across the entire enterprise. And it's inspiring every single day, like to see somebody say Cava and get excited about it, or the stories we hear about how it helps improve people's health and wellness, or the fact that you have people across the country gathering after they have soccer practice or go to church, and Cava is kind of that center point of community connection. That's what inspires me and keeps me going.
It's great. Thank you. And the world, the marketplace, the job market is pretty challenging for sort of younger audiences. Andy, if you could travel back in time and give your 20-year-old self advice, what would that be?
My advice to my 20-year-old self would be patient and be intentional. Um, it's interesting because I would say that everything in today's society is made easier through social networks like LinkedIn. Things are always one click away. My 20-year-old self would have spent a long time writing a long cover letter or trying to figure out a way that I can have somebody open up a door for me to, try to get an interview. And I would say to anybody listening to your podcast, just realize that you're going to shoot your shot and people are going to tell you no, but don't let that change your drive or change your motivation for trying to shoot your shot with something. It's a lot harder to hear the word no, but sometimes you're going to come back even better and stronger. And that yes will feel that much better. And so patience is virtue, and not every single path is linear, and realize that sometimes there's going to be audibles and transitions and mulligans, and it's just part of life.
I love that. As an entrepreneur, the no's and dealing with them, and the drive and the persistence, it is such an important part of the professional life. So thanks for that. And then to finish off our episode together, what do you do for fun outside of work?
So you probably see this little thing that I have in my background. I'm a huge LA Dodgers fan. 2 years in a row winning the World Series. Grew up going to a ton of Dodger games. So I love sports. I love movies. I love spending time with my family. And I love to travel the world. I think one of the things that I've been very fortunate about throughout my career working for four incredible brands is it allows me to see the United States, and it's allowed me to see the world. And I just kind of take each moment that I have the fortunate opportunity to travel and just really embrace different cities, different cultures, different populations, and it just helps me live a better and more fulfilled life. And certainly helps as I try to help steer the course of the brand and decision making. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun. I love being able to travel. That's probably one of my favorite things I do for fun.
Could not agree with you more. Andy, first, congrats on your trajectory, and congrats on what you're doing with Cava. It is amazing to watch and to taste as well. Thank you so much for your time and for being so candid and generous with the kernels of insights for our audience. It's great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, and I appreciate you being such an avid Cava fan.
This has been another exciting episode of Cultural Fluency Makers. See you next time. That's a wrap on another episode of Cultural Fluency Makers. Thank you for joining us. Please share your comments and what you would like to hear more about. Be as specific as possible. For show notes and more, please visit culturalfluencymakers.com. This show is proudly sponsored by Collage Group, unleashing the power of cultural intelligence to fuel brand growth. Please follow Collage Group on LinkedIn, and we will see you next week.